I am the queen of turning it off when I think I'm turning it on. Hi, everybody. Is this on? Oh, it's on. Oh, I felt that. Good. Is it morning? It's still morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Beaches Museum's annual Spring in the Blooms event. I'm Chris Hoffman, Executive Director of the museum. Is this anyone's first time in the chapel? Awesome. We had a lot, like in the hummingbird one, most of the hands went up. So we are delighted to see you here for the first time, hopefully not your last time. We use this chapel, was built in 1887, but we just had a concert on Thursday. We have a church that meets here on Sunday, but we love to use this beautiful building for lectures, meetings, all sorts of other things. So it ties in perfectly with our Spring in the Blooms event to have a couple informational lectures. And if nothing else, you're enjoying the air conditioning for a little while, right? And who doesn't love that as we're heading into Florida summer? And I didn't realize I was right in front of Kevin. Can everyone see all three speakers? Okay, great. So I mentioned I'm Chris Hoffman, and we tried to come up with some informational lecture experiences during this event. And when we were thinking about this year, the history exhibit that we have up in the museum right now is about the history of tourism. So if you haven't been over to the museum, please stop by anytime between now and July 9th. That exhibit will be up. But I thought it might be neat to tie in the lecture here with not only Spring in the Blooms, but with that exhibit. And I really thought a lot about our dune system and how important that is to our coastline to preserve our beaches area for things like tourism and just basically even being able to live here. So that's why we tied this in together, and we brought in three wonderful panelists who you'll get a chance to meet in a second. So I wanted to show a little bit of the history of from some of our photos in the archives. This is actually the postcard advertising the exhibit. And you can kind of see there the boardwalk and the seawall. And it worked a second ago. You guys all saw it. How many more times do I press it? Okay, Kevin, sorry I lied. It's not working. So I'm going to stand over here and do this. Nothing is not adaptable. So this is these are a couple pictures of 1907. What was Jacksonville Beach called in 1907? It was Pablo Beach, but it was incorporated as Pablo Beach in 1907. But bonus points for those of you who knew Ruby Beach. So you can see down here on the bottom left the seawall, and it was, if you think the beach is crowded now, just look at that. Look at how many people are just kind of hanging over just a wooden seawall. And then you have some pictures of First Street in Pablo Beach, and it looks like they really kind of just built, to me, I'm just assuming that they kind of built these houses like right onto where the dunes had been. And here's the better picture of, again, that wooden seawall. You could drive on the beach. I don't know how you find your car, though. They're all, black Model Ts or whatever. You couldn't even, click the security alarm like I have to do in the Target parking lot. And this is even a better example of that. Like, really, because, you go in the water, you drift a little bit. They're probably not actually swimming because the women are in full bathing dresses at this point. But I still, if you drift a little bit, I guess you just take home whatever car you want to. And then this is just kind of that. You'll see more of this in the tourism exhibit. And then you have Hurricane Dora. And this was a really dramatic impact to our coastline. And if you think about, we get hit with hurricanes all the time, hurricane this, hurricane that. Nope, this is the only time in over 400 years, and Kevin can probably correct me if I'm wrong, either Kevin, that this was a direct hit on our area. So you can see the impact on the Ferris wheel, and some really dramatic changes needed to be made. Here's some more pictures. The one at the bottom isn't actually Hurricane Dora. This was a storm in the 40s. But you can see where the seawall used to be. And then here, the top two are impacts of Hurricane Dora. So you see where seawalls were, the remnants. And then this is my favorite, the granite boulders. I know you remember these. Up against the seawall, and hopefully one of our presenters can explain why people thought boulders were going to stop water. Normally water just runs right over rocks. But this is where the term beach rat came from, because that was a great place for rats to hang out. So it was a lot of fun because you had your car on the beach and you had these boulders you could climb on and walk along the seawall. But in terms of shore protection, maybe really not the final answer there. And then this is a picture we actually took in 2020. So dramatic difference here with the sea dune, or the dune system grown up. And I think this is probably one of Kevin Brown's signs to ask people, not ask, it's pretty direct, keep off the dunes. But this was actually during COVID when we were going around taking some pictures. And then I just wanted to end it with another picture. This is actually from our postcard collection. So you've got a beautiful picture of the sea oats here, and just shows what an important component that is to our coastline. So just wanted to share kind of some of the pictures that inspired me in wanting. I actually set up this panel because I want to hear the panel, so I'm glad you guys all do too. Because especially after Ian and Nicole, and you see what happens to our dunes when those storms hit, it just made me really curious about where did they come from, why are they there, and why is it important to preserve them going forward. So, with that being said, I will come back over here. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists give you a brief introduction of who they are, and then we'll start with a few kind of discussion questions. And I will say, I think I know them all well enough to know if you pop in with a question in the middle of something, raise your hand and we'll go for it. This is for you and hopefully to be informative. So I'm going to start with Kevin Bodge, and if you guys just want to hand the microphone to each other.
Thanks, Chris. Dr. Kevin Bodge, I'm the president of Oats and Associates. We're a coastal engineering consulting firm here in Jacksonville, and I've been the coastal engineering consultant to the city of Jacksonville, the local sponsor of our beach project, for about the last 20 years.
I'm Jen Burns. I'm a marine turtle permit holder for Beaches Sea Turtle Patrol. Been doing that for about 20 years now, and I feel kind of out of place here because we've got KB, and I'm only JB. So, but I've known both KBs for a number of years, and they are such a great asset to our community, and I'm really proud to work with both of them.
My name's Kevin Brown. I was a marine science, environmental management educator at Fletcher for 38 years. Part of what I call the live classroom, this is how I fit into this group, is I am really big at creating a stewardship between the youth and currently more adults since I retired, in maintaining our ecosystem, our dune ecosystem, and how important it is to our quality of life at the beach. I plant sea oats, I put up barriers. I am one of Jen's people on Beaches Sea Turtle Patrol, so I'm heavily involved in what we would think as the beach ecosystem. Thank you.
I'm going to be dancing around a little bit, so at least I wore my dancing shoes. So the first, and it's funny that you're surrounded by KBs, because I started to just write the questions out by their first name. I'm like, well, I can't do Kevin, because I have two Kevins. And then all three of your names start with a B, so question one to Bodge. So the first kind of discussion topic I wanted to go through is, can you give us a little history on our dune system in our area? As you can see, as recently as the 60s, 70s, we did not have a dune system in our beaches area. And when did we go back to those dunes and why? And I'll be your slides.
Or I could stand there, Chris, and just advance if you want.
Oh, whatever you prefer. Okay.
So I wanted to give you a little idea of where the dunes that we have out there came from, because they weren't always there. From the pictures that Chris showed you, too, as late as the 1960s and 1970s, this was the condition of pretty much all of the Atlantic, Neptune, and Jacksonville beaches. This picture here from about the middle of Atlantic Beach in 1978. Very same location about 20 years later, where the dune has been recovered through our shore protection project. That seawall is still there, the rocks are still there, but they are buried behind behind the back dune, indicated by the location of that yellow line at the bottom of the picture. How did we get there? Well, to answer that question, and since this is the Beaches History Museum, we've got to look back at history, about 150 years. Looking at the whole coastal Duval County system here, let's zoom in on what this area looked like 150 years ago before man intervened in the coastal system. I think I got a pointer here. Yeah. The green indicates the shoreline in 1871, superimposed upon this 2001 picture. Note that Fort George Island is actually an ocean-fronting shoreline at that point. It isn't anymore. The entrance to the St. Johns River, over a mile and a half wide, a couple of different entrances to it, an island in the middle of it, which actually becomes Huguenot Park shortly thereafter. This is the same picture in 2001. The south end of Amelia Island has eroded away by over a mile and a half. That's due to the jetties at the St. Mary's River. Little Talbot Island expanded both to the north and to the south, overtaking Fort George Inlet. What was Ward's Bank is now Huguenot Park, sand accumulating against the jetty, closing off Fort George Inlet. And the St. Johns River, which had been over a mile and a half wide, is restricted down to about 2,000 feet. This is a nautical chart of the St. Johns River entrance in 1853. There's the river, what would become Mayport, down here. And like most inlets in Florida, it was surrounded by a large sandbar, which spanned all the way across, many miles across the inlet, the bar being only about 7 to 10 feet deep. A small channel was marked by pilots in this area, but again, it was only about 10 or 12 feet deep, obviously difficult to navigate, particularly for a schooner. In the 1880s and 1890s, jetties were constructed through that bar, over 2 to 3 miles long. And the interior was dredged, first to about 20 feet, then 30, then 40. The depth at the entrance to the St. Johns River now is over 50 feet deep and only about 2,000 feet wide. Now remember that the natural depth across this inlet, this sand-shearing system, was 12 feet. We've gone now from 12 foot of depth to 50 foot of depth and broken the entire system with 2 mile long jetties. Interrupting the entire littoral system is going to have an impact on the beaches. Not just the jetties, but the fact that all the sand that falls into this area is dredged, and most of it is dumped offshore. That was the federal government's standard practice up through the late 1990s before we finally got them to stop it. Some of the sand was also discharged or sidecast over the South Jetty in this area, which incidentally helped create the Great Break, which is the surf break at the poles. Okay, so this is the same area now shown in a photograph from about 2005. With the introduction of the jetties, sand impounded along the north part of the jetty, again formed what is now Huguenot Park, closing off Fort George Inlet. The severance of the Ebb Shoal caused sand out of this area to then be broken from the overall river of sand and move shoreward to create the fillet, which is Mayport Naval Station. And the interruption of sand transport caused beach erosion for over 10 miles to the south along all of Jacksonville Beaches. Jetty construction here in the 1870s and 1890s with stones. And at the same time, as Chris mentioned, at the early part of the 1900s, development was coming to Ruby, Pablo, Atlantic Beach in terms of development and the seawall and boardwalk construction. As Chris noted, those homes were built pretty much on the dune because they didn't know that it was just land. They didn't know it was part of an active system, and the seawalls went up right after that. The combination of armoring, or the seawalls of the shoreline, and man's intervention in the St. Johns River entrance ultimately led to the erosion of our beach system and the eradication of the natural dune system. What's the deal with seawalls? Why is that a problem? Well, let's look at natural beach process for just a moment. This is a cross-section or a profile through a beach. Dune over here, water and waves over on this side. This is what it might look like in normal summertime conditions. Then when you have a storm or increased water level, the waves need to chew the sand away out of the beach in order to have enough room to dissipate its energy. So it erodes the top part of the beach, maybe up into the dune, carries that sand offshore to create a bar, which helps break the waves further from shore. In a natural system, after the waves and the water level drop, that sand then migrates back on shore, and you have your natural beach system again. It's a dynamic moving system that goes from the top of the dune out to 20 feet of water depth. What happens if you put a seawall in the middle of it? Seawalls are very good at protecting the upland against erosion, but at the expense of the beach. When the waves come up here and need to chew away sand from the upper part of the beach to make enough room to dissipate their energy, they reach this wall. For every grain of sand that they can't get from behind that wall, they're going to take it from in front of the wall. The result is overall lowering or deflation of the beach, by which the entire beach then drops a couple of feet lower than normal and remains wetted all the time, even at low tide. That makes it very difficult for the beach to recover after a storm. So seawalls protect the upland, not the beach. So, and we see from this, these navigation effects, the jetties and then all the dredging, the seawalls, we see this gradual diminution of the beach system and this lowering of the beach, kind of going unnoticed until the point it reaches a critical tipping point where the beach system is so unhealthy it can't take a major stressor, like the 1962 nor'easter, then followed by the 1964 impact of Hurricane Dora. This was the condition along pretty much all that 10-mile shoreline. The rocks were placed after that to protect the seawall, the so-called Johnson rocks, which were ordered by the Johnson administration. So we have the rocks and the rats. The condition did not improve. Rocks do not make sand. And so in 1978, here this location around 12th, 13th Street and Atlantic Beach, again, battered seawall, old rocks, debris, no beach at all at high tide, minimal beach at low tide. So the solution was a shore protection project. That is a beach nourishing project. Very, very new thing at this time. The project was authorized by the U.S. government in 1965, just after Dora, and then the final design came out around 1975. The project, again shown in profile view, consists of a beach which is 60 foot wide, built right off the seawall, okay? 60 foot seaward of the seawall, and then sloping into the sea. You'll note there's no dune feature or anything, it's just sand placed at that location. So again, it was authorized in 1965. It was constructed initially, first time in 1978, and the sand is replaced in intervals of about 5 to 6 years. Now, of course, that first 60-foot wide beach, that's what the project is intended to maintain. Make sure there's always at least 60 foot of beach out there. Well, in order to do that, each renourishment places a whole lot more sand than that, like twice as much, and then it kind of slopes into the sea, because this extra sand is that sand which we know will erode in a 5 to 6 year period of time, so that we always have this base amount of beach there. So that was the project. And again, a real novel thing. This is the third oldest beach nourishment project in the state of Florida. First was Miami in 1972. Second was Fort Pierce in 1974. And then the Duval project. So it's one of the longest and most successful projects, not just in Florida, but in really all of the United States. As I mentioned, the project was authorized in 1965, and working at the lightning speed of the federal government, they implemented the project 13 years later. That's fast for them. Since that initial construction in 1978, the project's been renourished on numerous occasions, particularly after severe storm events, the average interval of time between each of these beach renourishments is about 5 years more or less. The next renourishment, again, on schedule for the spring of 2024. Where does the dune come in to all of this? Well, the dune, as we initially know today, I should say, was initially constructed through sand fencing around 1993. It's not part of the original project. Let's go back to that. Oh, I'm sorry, and before I forget, all of the sand for this beach renourishment project or for the dunes, it comes from offshore bar areas in about 50 feet of water, located about 7 nautical miles offshore. We're lucky to have very big reserves of sand in that area. Interesting fact, the initial project design for our project in 1978 was to take all of the sand from upland lakes up in the Wonderwood area, where it's now Hannah Park, and Mayport Naval Station, because the concept of offshore dredging and placing the sand on shore was not known. No one had ever done it. It hadn't been invented until the early 1970s. So around 1974, the project was flipped to get rid of digging out all of the lakes up in Wonderwood in favor of using sand from offshore.
Sir,
Yes.
is there a difference in the sand between ocean sand and land sand?
Yeah, question is the difference in sand between ocean and land, and yes, there is. And for the most part, if you do it right, ocean sand is coarser and more compatible with the beach. But we use plenty of upland sand for beach nourishment as well. I'm doing a project, hundreds of thousands of cubic yards in Brevard County right now, which is taking upland sand, and it's perfectly good for the beach. However, I do have a philosophical problem of digging out the interior of our state and placing it along the exterior. Anyway, let's go back to the fundamental project, the renourishment and all. It's a flat berm, both the authorized design and the renourishment. There's no dune feature in that. This is standard federal government practice up through really around 2008, 2010, where the dune wasn't recognized as part of an important beach system. It was just landscape window dressing with pretty flowers. However, after Hurricane Sandy in 2012, the federal government finally realized the importance of dunes. In areas like New Jersey, New York, Delaware, that had robust dunes in their shore protection projects suffered very little flooding. Suddenly, attention turned to dunes, and they were incorporated to the project. But presaging that, in the early 1990s, the city of Jacksonville, who was the sponsor for our project, suggested to the Corps of Engineers that, hey, we should probably add a dune thing, or at least some fencing, to the back of our project. And so in a report written by the Corps of Engineers in 1990, it suggested 3 things. 1, extend the authorized life of the project to 50 years, so it would expire in 2028. Widen the authorized beach from 60 feet to 75 feet. And add a dune feature, actually what was add sand fencing and some grass, as they called it, back here. Interestingly, the reason for it was not to create a dune. It was to stop wind-blown sand from blowing into people's backyards because they were complaining about it. The report went up to Washington. The headquarters of the Corps of Engineers said, hey, nice report. We agree with the 50-year authorization. Done. We don't agree with the 15-foot extension of your beach, and we think the dune fencing thing is a great idea, but we're not going to pay for it. We'll put it in the project, but the city of Jacksonville is going to have to pay for it and maintain it. Okay, so there you go. So as a result, the city of Jacksonville put in 2 rows of sand fencing and some sand vegetation around 1993 and 94. This actually isn't in Jacksonville Beaches, but at the same time I was putting in a lot of sand fencing elsewhere around Florida. Here's an example of a row of sand fencing. We used to use volunteer labor to put it in. And what the results from sand fencing and vegetation look like after just 1 or 2 years of this fencing being in place. You'll notice here this example in Cocoa Beach. We put in 1 row of sand fencing, let it accumulate sand, and then we put in a 2nd row about a year or 2 after that. In Duval, they actually put both rows in at the same time. So the landward row never caught any sand. It's still there. The poles are there for each firewood. And the seaward row is what caught all of our sand dunes. How did all of this come out? If you look at a beach profile in the history of it, so this is a slice through the beach up here around Atlantic Beach. There's the seawall with the rocks at its base. Okay, and you see there's no beach, that's the high water line, high tide line. There's no beach at high tide, barely a beach at low tide. 1974 before the project. 1985, okay, so about 5 years after the initial project was built, beach has been built up, so there's a dry beach. It's about 200 foot wide off the seawall. By 2011, about 7 years after that sand fencing went in, there goes the dune feature. You can see it there having been established, and the beach getting wider and higher, successfully much wider and higher even than the authorized design. 5 years later, summer of 2016, the dune has gotten even bigger and bigger. Beach is eroded back because it's due for a renourishment, which will occur in just a few months, except that Hurricane Matthew comes along and wipes out our dune feature. But, yay! We had a renourishment project going on, already under contract, so we said let's add more sand to it, and we'll add dunes into it. The city of Jacksonville will pay for that, just give us a little more sand. Rebuilt the dune and the beach up to pre-Matthew condition, vegetated the dune with about 650,000 sea oat plants, and 3 weeks later we got hit by Hurricane Irma, so we had to do it all over again, but such as it is. Overall success. Then, so here is Jacksonville Beach looking south from the lifeguard station in 1962. Same location. There's the seawall edge. Exact same location in 2011. So that's the result of the shore protection and dune project. Looking northward, again, you see the corner of the seawall there. This is currently Joe's Crab Shack. In 1973, you see low tide, hardly any beach. Same location in 2011. Of course, we had impacts to that same areas right after Matthew, but again, we repaired those through renourishment. This is the after renourishment effects from Matthew. I'm not going to go through the Ian and Nicole stuff too much in the interest of time, but suffice to say, except for one important thing, after we last renourished the project in 2019, we had 2 years of good weather before Hurricane Ian came along. In that time, the dune actually gained 90,000 cubic yards of sand. That's a lot. People would always say, oh, our dunes are so eroded, you gotta go do something about it, we need sand fencing. It's like, no, dude, the dunes are actually accreted. It wasn't until Ian that we actually had some impacts to that. Ian took 72,000 cubic yards out of the dune, which actually is less than that which naturally accreted before the storm came along. But Nicole really took a big chop out, about 160,000 cubic yards, because again, the beach had been so weakened by Ian, the waves slammed right into the dune. All of that will be repaired with an upcoming nourishment that is scheduled for to start somewhere in the February 2024 timeframe. It's going to be a very big project, over 1 million cubic yards of sand. It'll probably take most of the summer to do. That project will run all the way from the north end, from the poles southward through the county line. It'll also include revegetation of all of the rebuilt dunes on the order, we're probably putting about 700,000 sea oats next summer. And the way it's finessed is I predict that the final ultimate cost to the city of Jacksonville, the beaches don't pay for this, COJ does, but their final ultimate cost I think we'll have down to less than $700,000 by the time we finish all of our cost share reimbursements. The other good news is we think that the life of this project has been extended out to 2040 due to congressional action. A lot of information. I got to turn back to Chris. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that history, and the side-by-sides of the then and now are really provocative, and now you know why beach people are always yelling at people to stay off the dunes. Because we see it and we get it. We may not know the scientific background of it, but I think we can appreciate the protection that those dunes offer. So We'll go on to our next B, brown. And I'd like to ask you, can you tell us how dunes work in simplified terms, and what role do sea oats play? And it's probably a really good picture for you to use as a reference.
I'm going to.
You want the mic?
No, yeah, I don't need. I got the coach. First of all, my job, my role in all this is just being a voice. I try to get people motivated to secure and enhance the dunes. So how does this work? Kevin mentioned in a spot there, he said that when after a hurricane you've got wet sand. I want y'all to picture walking on the beach. You got low tide, the sand's wet. Everybody with me? Okay. We get up to what we call the high tide line. Still a little damp. But then you get this high beach. And that high beach is all that soft, hot, loose sand from the high tide line to the dune. That sand, how does this work? Well, when we get breezes and airs, what this vegetation does is you don't see it, but there's sand and salt spray all in the air. And what it's doing is accumulating, and this plant life acts as a net. And so when Kevin was mentioning that the dunes, that 2-year period, we all saw it. If like Jen and I are on the beach every day, and I can't tell you how many people after Irma, for about an 8-month period, were going, God, the dunes are great. They were just jacking up. Some people didn't like that. Residents. Why? Because they couldn't see the beach. And I'm like, well, you can't see the beach, but I guarantee you the next storm we have, you won't have what is called breaching seawater in your backyard. Okay, so that soft sand, what I call sugar sand, will blow up into the dune and it'll be caught by the vegetation. Now, notice the root system, okay? These roots hold sediment in place. So the more plant life we have, the more root system we have, the more sand will accumulate, and exactly what Kevin said, the dunes will rise, they get bigger, which I think after Ian and Nicole, we did get, if you look at this picture over here, this was the day after, and my big thing is the dune line held, the crest of the dune held. Okay, that's what I get all excited about. I coached all kinds of sports. To me, this is like after the game and we won. I go, yeah, we won. So what I do is teach that. So how does the dune work? That's how it works. The sand accumulates in there. What I like to do is get with groups. He mentioned that the sea oats became prominent around 2010. And that's when I'm in my classroom and I'm thinking, y'all know Fletcher, it's 3 blocks from the ocean. So I'm like, what can I do? What can we do to get involved with being stewards of the beach? So what happened is I got into this sea oat planting mania. And we would plant, our goal was to plant 2,500 sea oats a school year. And ended up, we started planting 5,000 a year. And I'd get donations, and people would go. I was humbled by being recognized. The group was recognized. I tell this story by the Jaguars, community champions or something like that. So we were recognized at one of the half times. Y'all, the next 2 weeks, I collected almost $15,000 through the mail from Savannah to little out, these places out in Duval, and just money came in. So I took every penny and bought sea oats. So that's where my part comes in, okay? Now, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to take away from Steve here. Jen's going to talk to y'all in a minute about how important the dunes are to our sea turtles. And I'm just going to say this, okay? If you go on the beach now, one of my projects with Jacksonville Beach is you'll see PVC pipe in Yellow Road. Now, I've gotten both sides of this, okay? I got people that come up and they go, that's ugly. And I go, yeah, it is. But wait a minute. And I get my sign and I go, boom, that's beautiful. And I do that. Right before a big event, 2 years ago, we got all that up. It was my last year teaching, so I got the kids and we did all the way to 34th, and I got Neptune Beach done. And here come the crowds. And I've got photos of standing up on the lifeguard station, and I mean the beach is packed. And all these people are on this side of the road. Nobody's in the sand dunes. Foot traffic is brutal to our sand dunes. Our beaches, but all of our communities, Jack's Beach, Neptune Beach, Jack's Beach, have invested a lot of money in walkovers. The walkovers are there. I know some people don't like them, but the walkovers are there so that the dune can continue to grow and build. And I've even had people go, the sand's coming into the walkover. That's beautiful, because when you built it, it was 4 foot underneath, and now the sand is equal with it. And all of this is done to save residential and commercial properties at the beach and give marine animals an ecosystem to exist, which we need. Once again, I'm going to let Jen talk to you about that. But the importance. Now, something everybody can do. Can y'all plant, if I lived in that house in Atlantic Beach, every year I'd plant sea oats and stuff in my dune. And I could water it. The other thing is, I know y'all hate the sargassum. It smells. Sargassum weed, and we get river grass that comes out of the river. I'm trying my hardest. We call it the Great Rake. And I get groups, and we literally rake the seaweed and put it along the toe of the dune. And if people would start to do that, just like you rake the leaves out of your yard, or you blow the leaves off of your driveway, this is something that if we live at the beach and we are oceanfront, we need to do this. And I promise you, we've done this in 8 to 10 days on a good windy day. That sargassum is covered and we get a hump. Now, does that save us from hurricanes? No way. Not a little bit. But is it a process that has cost no money and that we can enhance our dunes with? Absolutely. You can enhance them. So that's where I fit into this symposium. I'm a voice. I try to motivate people. I try to get them involved in taking care of that dune system. I do little projects that I'd rather be slapped on the hand afterwards to say, no, you can't do that, than not do it at all. And I really try to work with a lot of youth. In May, I'm doing, for example, San Pablo Elementary. I'm taking the whole school down to the beach in a 3-day period, and I'm going to educate them on turtles and marine life and sand dunes and sea oats. Because I always tell them, I go, your generation has to continue this. So that's where I fit in. If anybody ever wants to do any little projects around their neighborhood or their oceanfront, call me. I'll be right there. Thank you.
Where do you buy sea oats?
There are 3 nurseries. Now I'm going to do this real quick. There's 3 nurseries in the state of Florida. They're all over in Tampa and St. Pete. I have a number I can give you after this meeting. Here's the problem. This has become, renourishment on beaches has become a major Florida issue. And the government has all the contracts. So for example, 10 years ago, I could call up on a Monday and say, I need 1,000 sea oats, and they'd come in on Thursday. Now you have to call almost 3 to 4 years in advance, and put in a pre-order. For example, this San Pablo project, I had to call them. I said, I need 1,000 in May, and they go, we'll do our best. Because all these big projects are scooping them by the hundreds and thousands, and they can only grow so fast. So you got to get on the list. But if you get them, I'll show you exactly how to do. I'll get some kids and we'll put them in for you and show you what to do. But I can give you that number after the meeting.
I just wanted to go back to something you said in terms that if you live right on the beach, you would be planting oats. There are some things we don't want to plant out there.
Correct.
So what's
Okay.
the one that everybody thinks you're supposed to plant, but you're really not supposed to?
Christmas trees. And do not put your Christmas trees out there. Can I tell them why? You good with that? Yeah. Okay. So, you do not want any yard debris. Palm fronds, no. The bushes you pull out from in front of the house, you go, oh, I don't want to throw them away. I'm going to throw them in the dune. What does is what we found out after the sand fences and things, especially the Christmas trees, is the trunks do not deteriorate. Y'all remember, there's not a lot of microbes in this soil. There's not a lot of microbes that are breaking things down like it would in that dark soil. So these root structures and trunks remain and create a conduit for rats and secondary predators. So you do not want anything like that in the dune. These are all grasses: sea oats, beach morning glory, railroad vine, beach sunflower. Obviously there's some invasive ones, okay? You don't want to put Brazilian peppers out here. All right, that's a no-no in the state of Florida. But any type of grass, and once again, the sawgrass, you can put that in there. Okay, and you want to plant in the back. Now, Kevin mentioned there's going to be a project in 2024. So right now, we're not doing a lot of planting like we did in the past, because I don't want to. We've talked about this already. We don't want him to just cover it up. So where we are planting is in the back of that dune. Okay? And did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The last thing, and Jen's going to talk to y'all about turtles, is I want you to understand, if you notice these two pictures, our turtles love the sand dunes. They love nesting up there. It's a perfect ecosystem for them. These are two pictures of what was, and we went out a week ago and did a whole survey on the beach, and we're a little nervous about this because we're not sure we don't know what they're going to do. If they're going to hit that escarpment and just kind of meander up and down it and say, nah, not today, and leave, or are they going to settle in? Which, if you look at my poles with the yellow rope, we're starting to get a little slope on the escarpments, and I'm hoping that helps a little bit. So this is why the dunes are so important. Once again, all I am is an advocate. I'm a voice. I try to get people involved in protecting it and holding the line. If we can do that, if we can hold the line, then we'll keep water from breaching into commercial and residential property.
Thank you. Okay, Vern, we haven't already stolen all your thunder. So my questions for you are, what role did protecting sea turtles play in the implementation of the dune system at the time, and why is it important to the sea turtles that we maintain the dunes?
Well, last but not least, but Kevin's have covered everything in wonderful detail, so there's not really a whole lot I can do except tie in the role of the dunes and the sea turtles, which is the most basic thing about the turtles is that they need a dry beach or they have no nesting habitat. So that's basically the one thing that's the most important to have these dune systems. But once we get that flat beach or that little slope at the toe of the dune, and they can leave their nest there, then the dunes are also playing an important part for the hatchlings when they come out, because if the dune is tall enough and high enough, it will shield them from a lot of artificial light from the beachfront buildings. And that really can pretty much cause an entire nest to go in the wrong direction. And usually we're not able to get to them in time before they're perished or they're lost in the dune vegetation, or they're gotten by ghost crabs or other So basically, that's really it. You can see Kevin's pictures here. The one on the left, thank you, Chris. She kind of went up a little bit into the dune. The sand fence there was a little bit of an impediment. We did have several instances of what we call obstructed nesting attempts last season, where they came up on the dune, they hit sand fences or they hit walkovers, and then they left. We had one, I believe we had 5 altogether. One was chased off by another animal. The other 4 were these types of structures, the sand fence, walkovers, and only one of those successfully nested. As Kevin, the other Kevin, Kevin number 2, as he already advised, with that escarpment there, there's not really going to be a way for the turtle to get up on top of the dune. So if there's not any kind of a slope where she can put her nest, and you'll see that tide coming all the way up there, she's not, if she does leave a nest there, it's more than likely going to get washed out. So that's really all I can add to the wonderful information that KB Squared gave you already. And I have some numbers if anybody's interested in that from last year.
Yeah, sure. I think it's significant.
Okay. Well, last year we had, we didn't have all these escarpments, so we had our 3rd highest nesting season ever on record with 98 nests. 4 of them were leatherbacks, so they're really a treat to have on our beach. But you know, we didn't have any greens, although we had a green the year before and no leatherbacks. So the majority of the turtles that nest here are all loggerheads, and we have a ton of information at our table out there. If you haven't been there yet, how to identify the different tracks, you know, when the turtles come in, how long the nests take to incubate, and about how many hatchlings are produced, and all that kind of information. So that's basically it, and I don't have anything else.
Can you tell by the nest which type of turtle it is?
Yes, they all leave a distinctive, we call it a crawl path.
Okay.
They have, some are wider, some are, you know, the 2 larger species, the greens and the leatherbacks, nest with parallel, like a butterfly crawl. So they leave different marks in the sand than the loggerhead does that crawls with an alternating gait like a baby.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are we making progress in terms of the overall?
We are, but you have to be really careful with the nesting numbers. The state has recorded some really high numbers last year, but that's only part of the picture. They can't, you know, generally it's trending up, but the turtles have such a long lifespan, and each year, you know, you might have a good year, but that can't, you know, be the impetus for saying that they're on their rebound. And then hatchling, another major part of it is hatchling production. They could have, if they have 100 nests out there, but the tides wash away the eggs, or the turtles drown in the nest, or it gets too hot and the eggs all cook, then a large number of nests doesn't necessarily equate to that the species is on the decline.
I think it's, somebody referenced, it might have been you the other day to me, that in the early days of the Sea Turtle Patrol, somebody said Mort was having to dig the eggs up and transplant them into Hannah Park. So it's really great that we are able to maintain the nests right here on our own beaches where they should be. And thank you to the Sea Turtle Patrol, because those are volunteers that are going out there bright and early every morning. Some of them come to community events dressed up as sea turtles, which is always a thrill. But you guys really, and Kevin and your crew, this is just volunteers and passionate people about maintaining our coastline. And my last 2 questions, I think we've kind of already incorporated them into our presentation. What is the future? And I think that's really keep up what we're doing, and the beach renourishment will come as needed, but there's also that natural renourishment. And then what can the average citizen do to help? And stay off the dang dunes.
What do we do when we see people blatantly?
I have a story.
Yeah, blatantly. I know you do. when you blatantly see our visitors that really don't give much care.
When people ask me that, and if you don't know, I'm also the mayor of Jacksonville Beach, so I have a couple different hats in this game, but I always give people the benefit of the doubt, because if you don't live at the beach and understand why they're important, then they're just a good place to go up and play and take a picture. So they may not be intentionally disrupting the dune system.
This is what I teach students, okay? Kindly approach the person and say, may I have a minute of your time? 9 times out of 10, they go, sure. Are you from here? No, we're from, example, Ohio. Okay. I'm glad you came to visit our beach. Do you realize that, see the yellow rope? Oh yeah, we wondered what that was. I go, well, we have a dune system and we're trying to protect it. And they go, oh, okay. They were literally on top of the dune, right next to Seawalk Pavilion with a blanket over the sea oats. And they were great. They said, we didn't realize that. I said, see the walkover? And they go, yeah. I go, use the walkover. So that's, may I have a minute of your time? Just 2 days ago, I'm down at South Jacks. There's a group of kids on boogie boards, and they're jumping down the dune on the boogie board, ducking underneath the yellow ropes. And so they were youth, and I got a little bit more aggressive with them. And I, explained my scenario to them. So there are a lot of people on our beach that aren't from here.
Right.
We are becoming more, and I'm on the beach every day, and I talk to people every day. And we are becoming a huge place for tourism and visit. So, may I have a minute of your time and just have a discussion with them?
Is there a place where we could buy a standard sign? Can I go to Ace Hardware and stay off the dunes?
Yeah, Copy Graphics on Pemmon Road can do them. I'm in process with a project with Jacksonville Beach. Right now we've run out of signs. They are on order. But if you do walk the beach, and she showed you one example, every time we put that rope up, we put 5 or 6 signs in the dune. I've had people call me and say, can I get some signs? And I go, I'll bring them right to you. And I brought them to them. Yes, the answer is you can get those locally. But
where was that again? You can get
Copy Graphics, it's on Pemmon Road, and they can make them.
And at all the beach accesses, it's almost sign blight, and people are like, well, we need a sign. I'm like, it's there, trust me. Dogs on the beach, all the beach rules, they're all there, but we do overwhelm people with the signs. But I think the ones on the beach side are really effective, because that's the only sign you see from the beach sign, so beach side.
It would be nice to have a standard verbiage anyhow. If I go, what am I going to tell them to put on it? Stay off the
Stay off the
beach?
dune.
Please keep
but-
off the dune.
Okay, why don't we have a standard one that?
Well, there's a green sign that I'm trying to get people to get, which is, it's got the state statute on it about sea oats. And, that's just, we need more and more of those. That is a standard sign. There are a few of those in and off different areas of the beach, but you can have one made. You can say keep off the dune and go to the state statute and 614.27 something and put it on the bottom.
People love to read state statutes on their way to the beach.
On their sign.
It's proven. And I will say too, one of the things, Beaches Go Green, which is another great organization in town, and I don't know if you guys know this, Beaches Go Green put together a palm card, or a rack card, and it's got information on who to call on sea turtles. It's got a QR code that'll take you to each of the cities, kind of rules and everything like that, but they've passed it out to all the hotels, because that is really where the education needs to go. We've got it at the Visitor Center for Visit Jacksonville, and everything's available online, but the signs are great, but we want to be able to keep the information dynamic, which is why we have that QR code. So if there's any sort of safety alert or anything like that, we can do that. And I just want to say, we're going to get to the end of our time today, and I want to thank you all for coming, but I want to thank Specifically, these three up here for all that they are doing. As you can tell, this is truly a passion and labor of love, and they're out there every day really helping educate, inform us, but also doing the work to help protect our shoreline. And for me, especially valuable after, I think it was Hurricane Nicole, which was the first one. Was it? Yeah.
Matthew.
I'm doing the alphabet. Ian. I had to go down to the city press conference after the storm, and everyone's panicked because of the escarpment of the dunes. And so I'm getting numbers and history and what's the scientific process. You know, Kevin Bodge and Kevin Brown, I got them both on the phone, and to describe, you know, I talked to many other people through it. The sand is all still out there. There is a natural renourishment project. It's not as quick and easy as the big one that will happen starting next year, but there is natural renourishment that will happen to help level those dunes back out. So I appreciate you guys for being a resource to me as well for that and for all that you do. Any last questions before we break and go out and enjoy the rest of our day? Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you for supporting Beaches Museum. And stay off the dunes.
Oh, yeah.
Those green ones are out there, which have got the statues.
It'll be nice to put everybody has all the
Same,
same
yeah.
things.
I
And I
understand.
can walk in and buy that same.
I saw, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have half a one.
Okay, did you see one about beside the library?
Oh, is that for me?
Do you want me to turn this off? Chris, did you want me to turn this off?
Oh my gosh, thank you.